I hope you know me by now, thanks to his introduction. I can see familiar faces, a lot of familiar faces, that's good. From ballerina, open choreo and choreo, right? So, I'm going to ask a silly question. I know this, right? Anyone using AI-assisted LLM-powered tools? I know. So, what that means is, we are writing more code than ever. Agree, right? We are more productive. I'm not sure whether we are writing, but we are generating, and then we are committing and we are pushing, right? So this is true, and we are all okay with that. There's nothing wrong with this statement. But what do you think about this? Do we really understand the code that we produce now? I mean, those days, we write code a character by character, right? We get certain tokens suggested by VS Code using LSPs, but we had some help, but nowadays we are getting a lot of help, right? But we generate a lot of code, but do we really understand? I know some people read a lot of code, that is good, but like in general, anyone disagrees with this statement? No one disagrees, so that is a good sign. So I'm on the correct stage. Okay, so June, July last year, I was working on this Open Choreo project. We were busy releasing Open Choreo 0.3, targeting WSO2 We were really busy. I think most of the WSO2 team, we were busy with WSO2 targeted product versions, right? So at that time, my task was to Open Choreo, we wanted to have a backstage UI. Right? Backstage is like the internal developer platform, internal developer UI framework, where you can write internal developer portals. So we wanted to have a backstage plugin for Open Choreo. Right? To do that, you need to have an API server in the control plane. So the Open Choreo control plane code is in a separate repository. But the Backstage plugin was in a separate repository. So my task was to create that plugin. So I had to open 2 Claude Code shells, like one command line shell, open GitHub repository of control plane. On the other side, I open Claude Backstage plugin, right? So my task was to write the plugin, create the UI experience. But we needed an API server, REST API, in the control plane. So on one side, I am asking Claude Code to generate me API resources. I need to get components, get projects by ID, all that. On the other side, I'm telling Claude Code saying, okay, I have these resources now, right? And then now I need, if you look at Backstage plugin, there are front-end plugins and back-end plugins. Back-end plugins has the API client, basically. So I've been generating both the REST API resources and Backstage backend clients and also the UI experience. So I did not write any code on that. I've been asking Claude Code to generate code. It worked. I tested. I did some tweaks. Everything worked. We did the product release. That was the 0.3 release. I remember doing a demo, WSO2 as well. But the code I generated was good. There's no issue, right? But we never recommended using that version in production for obvious reasons. But the challenge is, this is my personal experience as well, but when we read a lot of articles around, I understood the same, a lot of people share the same experience. They are saying, we generate code, but we really don't understand. We don't feel the ownership of the code. Is that true? Right? I can see a lot of nods, so that's good. The reason is we used to write code by hand, line by line, and we really know what we are doing. But with AI, we are getting a lot of code, but that statements too. But is this a good sign? Maybe that's how we can adapt AI. Maybe that's the reality. Should we move on with that, or should we do something different? Is that healthy? I think my personal opinion is that experience is okay for a one-off tools that you just want to get something done. But I believe that is not okay for a production-ready, maintainable code that you want to produce over the years. Because there are some code that you want to maintain over the years, right? So let's take a look at what are the problems that we will get into if we don't do something about this. So with AI, we are now more productive. What that means is we can release features at a much faster rate. Maybe though that feature could have taken like 3-4 days, but now we can do it in 1 hour. Right? But because we have less understanding of the code, if something goes wrong, it takes a little bit more time for us to figure out what's going on. I think that is the reality. That has happened to me also. Right? So if I came across this report like Git Clear AI Code Quality Research that was done in early 2025. So it's one year old. What it says is if we increase our AI adoption by 25%, the important part is this: the delivery stability will go down by 7.2%. These are just numbers, but I think I have seen this in several places. Let's not worry about this, but this is important, right? For like the code that we want to maintain, the product that we maintained over the years, even though our productivity has been increased, the stability has been decreased. So there is something that we have to do something about that, right? That's one problem. The other one is, this I think Jishan mentioned, before AI, we used to copy and paste code from Stack Overflow or similar places, right? But we used to copy like few lines of code. And we usually read that we copied. We know what we are copying. But now we have evolved into, we are doing the same thing, but now AI-generated code. So it's the same thing to me, right? So we are now used to accepting AI as AI-generated code. That is, I just want to reiterate that the talk, what I'm saying is, I'm not thinking negatively about AI, right? I'm just saying we have to adapt using AI tools. That is the future. That will make us productive. But at the same time, we have to adapt it correctly. So that's basically the talk. Now, because of this evolution, what had happened over the years, if you look at the red line, what it says, the number of lines or percentage number of lines that we've been copy and pasting has been increased over the years, right? The blue chart shows that the percentage of lines moved for refactoring has been reduced or has been staying the same. These are percentages, right? So it's not easy to judge. But the interesting fact is this one. They are saying that 2024 is the first year on record where you have a higher percentage of copy-pasted line versus the moved lines. I'll talk about the moved lines in the next one. Another one is this. These are all from the same report, right? This says, if you look at the blue line, the first line on top, the number of lines that we have added over the years, the percentage has been increased, right? And then this green is number of lines moved here and there. The reason you move lines usually is to refactor. That's correct? We move lines here and there. If you figure out that this block of code is a duplicate, we delete this and we move it to some other function, some other library, so that we reuse, right? So what that means is we are not reusing. We are not reusing now. The code reuse is dying. That's the purpose of this graph. That's what this research says. We are adding code, but we are not really reusing. Maybe you share the same observation, right? All right. The other one is, I really like this term. It's called AI accelerated technical debt. I mean, we've been accumulating technical debt before AI, but at a much slower rate, right? We did accumulate, but we did fix But now, because of AI, because of we are adding more and more code without really refactoring, we are accumulating a lot of technical debt, and the term is very nice. It's called AI accelerated technical debt. I think that is correct. So we need to address this somehow, right? So what's wrong with this? What's going to happen? So this is again AI generated, but these lines are mine, the text, right? So I gave the text, and I asked like Gemini to give me a graphic that shows this concept, right? So it says, when you write more code, you have less understanding of the code. Then when you have less understanding, again, you need AI tools to understand the code, right? And add new features. And then AI will generate more code. Now you have even less understanding. So this, if you don't do something, this will go on, and something will happen, the system will fall apart. So these are just observations, right? So this, I haven't seen this anywhere. This is just personal opinion. I think I told you about this earlier as well. Because we don't write code, this is what I felt. I did not write my code in that exercise, and I didn't feel that I own the code, right? I would not defend this code in a code review, even though I have to, right? But I don't know, just think about these things, right? See what you can do. Now, these are just the problems, but we can go into the solutions. Any thoughts on this? Anyone disagrees? No, right? That's good. All right. So what can we do? What should we do? Or should we do something about this? The idea is, as I said earlier, if we are working on one-off tools, then there's no issue. All these things doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about these, right? We can just code and get it done. But for maybe what we are talking about today will not be applicable maybe in 2-3 years. AI will get better and better. We don't really need to look at the code. But at least right now, that statement is not true. Just that is what I felt, right? It's okay if you disagree, but that's what I feel. That's what I felt. So I believe we need to do something about this. So what I'm going to talk about next is you've been doing that already. But I think those techniques are way more important than before. So let's see the first one. I saw this video in LinkedIn, and I liked this screenshot and the text, so I just copied it. It is connected to this as well. So this is the very basic thing that we do. I'm sure we all do this. I'm not saying we are not doing this. I'm just reiterating, so you know the importance of that, right? So we use GitHub Copilot, we use Claude Code, and then I remember in June or July, I was just saying yes, 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 yes on both terminals, and that was fun. That was easy. But I think we should just read and understand what we are generating, what we are getting into. It's like copy-pasting from Stack Overflow, right? So we just need to be careful on what we are accepting. The other one is this one. Yes, we did refactor. This is nothing new, right? We did refactor. But as I said earlier, we accumulated technical debt at a slower rate. So we refactor. We didn't refactor every day, right? Every week. We refactor very occasionally. But now I think because of a lot of code, we need to refactor every week. Is that anyone? I think that is that's what I felt, right? We are accumulating a lot of code, so we need to look at the whole code base, see whether there are duplicates, whether there are anything that doesn't look right, and also we as human beings, that's our age. We have a lot of context that AI doesn't have, right? We know design patterns, we have history, we learn from others. So we have much more bigger context than AI. So when we look at not just the function I was talking about earlier. But when you accept a lot of code like over the week, then it makes sense to look at all of them and see what we can do. Can we refactor? Can we use AI tools again to refactor, right? So that is another important thing. So I'm sure you have seen this, right? This was shared in club group as well. So if you look at the first comment, so at Google, they've been trying to do something for about a year. There are details, but they were trying to do a project over a year, but then somehow they couldn't get it done for various reasons. Finally, they have given the description to Claude Code, and Claude Code given a solution in an hour, right? So this, there's nothing new, right? We also share the same experience. So the point is, AI, the LLM-powered tools, they will get better and better and give us what we need. But what's important to me is this statement, the second comment, right? So it's not perfect, and you have to go through the same cycle. You have to edit your prompt, regenerate, review, go through the same thing again, and get it perfect. And also, the other thing is, try it on a domain you're already expert. If you think about that little bit, if you're using AI tools to generate code, to come up with the product, come up with the feature in a domain that you are not familiar, then you won't have enough context, right, to review what it generates. I mean, to me, the way I think about that is, vibe coding is cool, but it won't get you far. Because if you're not familiar with the domain that you are working on, you will not get an output that you desire. So you need to, if you're working in compiler, like Ballerina, you need to understand what a compiler is and the whole domain, right? And without that, you can't generate code. Doesn't make sense. I think that is the idea. And then, right. So on the other hand, what we can interpret that this tweet, like, you need to know the domain, you need to know the area that you are working on, and then only you can describe the problem, describe the what you want, the terms that you're familiar, right? Once you do that, you get some output, and then you go through this cycle. This is nothing new. You articulate your thoughts, come up with craft your intent, look at the code it generates, and go through this cycle again and again. Right? I'm sure you've been following this loop over and over again, right? So, after all, yeah. So, I think one of the most important part to me, what we've been talking about is, we need to understand how to read code. Not just read, don't take the word literally read. It's about understanding the domain that you are working on and get better at reading the code, whatever the language you are working on. I know I can read Ballerina much faster than Go, even though now I'm working with Go. Right? So get familiar with the language you are working on. Try to understand the domain. Try to read the code. Try to review. I think we need to do that at a much faster rate than we did before. Right? So one other reason is, like I said earlier, we used to write the code earlier. So we know what we are writing. We have a full understanding. We didn't have to read the code we write. But now it's changed. We are generating and we don't have the full understanding. So we need to read. We need to read with the domain knowledge that we have. So I think if we can get better at this, we can produce 10x value, right? So I think this is also nothing new. We talked about this last year, right? Last year, the whole conference was about 10x engineer. The idea is not someone who writes 10x code, but someone who produces 10x value. How do you produce value in this era? At least for this perspective, is by learning the domain, thinking from the user experience, right? And then understanding and reading the code that it generates. So if you can master that, you can be a best or 10x engineer. And if you can, again, if you can master this, right, then you can relax while Claude Code or GitHub Copilot does or the agents, they will do the job, and you can relax. That's what we want to do, right? All right, thank you.